My name is Bruce Fielder, and I am the worship associate this morning and part of the team that is working to record and stream this service to you wherever you may be. We are an inclusive congregation that welcomes you as you are, inclusive of all your identities, complexities, and situations. We welcome your whole self, even if it isn't fully assembled, because we recognize that we are all a work in progress and that we are all in this together. This service is being posted on our YouTube page so that folks can watch it again later. Feel free to share it with your friends. Now, if you'll join me in our opening affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship. For these high purposes do we unite in worship. Our chalice lighting today is written by Lindsay Bates and entitled, To Face the World's Shadows, a Chalice of Light. To face the world's shadows, a chalice of light. To face the world's coldness, a chalice of warmth. To face the world's terrors, a chalice of courage. To face the world's turmoil, a chalice of peace. May its glow fill our spirits, our hearts, and our lives.
Welcome. Welcome to this day, this hour, this place, and this body. Together, we will answer a call to love. Together, we will create a thing of great beauty. Together, we may find the sacred in the spaces in between. Together, we will worship. Welcome. And now, a story for all ages. Kids, come close. This is another story about Nasruddin. And remember, some people say that he was very wise, and some people say that he was very foolish. I think you'll have to decide for yourself. Now, Nasruddin was a mullah. It meant he read and he taught, he prayed, and he got pretty well known for that in certain parts of his town. In fact, so well known, some people thought it was quite a prestigious thing to be acquainted with Nasruddin. So he wasn't too surprised when he received an invitation, to a banquet at the home of some very wealthy people. That should be interesting. Maybe he'll get a good meal. The day of the banquet came, and Nasruddin was so busy. He had been studying, he'd been teaching, he'd been praying. He didn't have time to get fancied up, and so he just went in the clothes that he was already wearing. They weren't anything special. In fact, they were kind of worn, but they were clean, good clothes. He showed up at the gate of the fancy home where the banquet was to be held, and he showed the guards his invitation. He said, I am Nasruddin, I'm here. The guards looked at the invitation, then they looked at the way he was dressed. They said, you're not coming in here dressed like that. He said, but I have an invitation. Surely somebody's expecting me? Just then a very fussy man came marching down from the front of the house. He took one look at Nasruddin and said, Shoo, you are not coming in. No, go. Nasruddin thought about it. He went home. He went to an old chest where some old clothes were kept, and he opened it up. He found his grandfather's old cloak. It had been very expensive. It was actually still in pretty good condition. He shook off the dust and he put it on. It fitted him quite nicely. It was a beautiful coat made of fabulous, wonderful fabric. And look at the details, the stitching on this coat. It's a very nice coat. Nasruddin, wearing his coat, now went back to the fancy home where the banquet was being held. This time he walked up to the gate and he showed them his invitation, and the guard stepped aside. "Please, right this way, sir." He went up to the front of the house. The fussy man stood there, looked at his invitation, looked at Nasruddin and said, "Right this way, sir." He snapped his fingers and called a person over. "Please show the mullah to his seat." Nasruddin sat down at the table. He introduced himself to all of the other people seated at the table. And just then the host clapped his hands. The meal was to be served. Oh, it smelled so good. First came a round of little things to nibble on, little appetizers, and Nasruddin helped himself to one or two, and then he lifted them and stuffed them under the collar of his coat. The other people at the table were a little surprised by this, but oh, maybe this is a new game we're all going to play. Next came the soup. And Nasruddin, oh, the soup smelled so good. He took his bowl of soup and he opened one of the pockets of his coat and poured the soup into his coat pocket, patted it shut. The people at the table were getting a little concerned, a little surprised. In fact, people at other tables noticed this odd behavior. Next came the main entree, a beautiful heaping pile of fragrant rice studded with nuts and fruit and stewed meats. It was so beautiful, smelled so good. Nasruddin took his portion of this beautiful food and he smeared it all over the coat. By then, there was quite a commotion. As dessert was being served, he took his piece of the dessert, put it in the other pocket, patted it shut. The host comes running over. He says, Mullah, what is going on? Is there some problem? Is the food not good enough for you? What is going on? Why are you doing this to your beautiful fabric? Why are you doing this with this food?" Nasruddin looked and he said, "Well, I thought when I came and you didn't let me in, but then when I came back with the coat, you really wanted the coat, so I figured the food is for the coat." Now, if you had been sitting at that table, what would you have thought? What would you have done? So do you think, was he a wise man or was he a fool? Thank you so much for listening to all of these stories about Nasruddin. If you want, we can find more and you can go learn more about this wise fool and all of the stories that attend him. I miss you. I hope you're well. I will look forward to the next time we're together.
For the next few weeks, we'll be taking a moment during each service to learn ideas to help us do the work of learning to be anti-racist. We're starting with introducing the definition and characteristics of white supremacy culture so that we can have a shared vocabulary and ideas to consider. We are drawing upon the works of Robin DiAngelo, Kenneth Jones, and Tima Oken. We'll be posting all of this information in our weekly newsletter.
Good morning, everybody. This week's anti-racism moment is called power hoarding. This is closely linked to paternalism. Within white supremacy culture, there is little, if any, value around sharing power. In this situation, power is seen as limited, with only so much to go around. As a result, those with power feel threatened when anyone suggests changes in how things should be done in the organization. Those with power feel suggestions for change are a reflection on their own leadership. In this situation, those with power don't see themselves as hoarding power or as feeling threatened. And those with power assume they have the best interest of the organization at heart and assume those wanting change are ill-informed, emotional, or inexperienced. Here are some antidotes for power hoarding. We can include power sharing in our organization's value statement. We can discuss what good leadership looks like and make sure people understand that a good leader develops the power and skills of others. We can understand that change is inevitable and challenges to your leadership can be healthy and productive. Finally, we can make sure that the organization is focused on the mission. Thank you for sharing this moment of anti-racism with AUUF.
Our congregation has a mission. If you would, please join me in saying these words together. Our spiritual community lives courage, nurtures wonder, inspires justice, and includes all.
At this time in our service, we lift up the joys and sorrows of our community. First, a candle of joy that those who are able to vote in person can now vote early. And so I want to say thank you to all of the people who are working at our polls to keep them open all day. And thank you to all of the people who have already voted. This is a candle of sorrow. This is the sorrow that the little orange kitten that the Lewis family took such good care of. Despite all of the feedings throughout the night and day, the little kitten has died. And that is sad because they really gave the kitty such good care. But sometimes kitties do die. And so I want all of the Lewis family to know how very sad and sorry I am. And finally, a candle for all of the joys and sorrows that were not shared, yet are still felt deeply in our hearts. For all of these candles lit and candles lit only in our hearts, let us give thanks. And now, let us take a moment to follow our breath into those places that you might have rushed over all week. With each breath, I invite you to go deeper and find the part of your own center that needs attention. Breathing in, breathing out. As a prayer, I offer the poetry of Rabia al-Adawiya. Some people make their goals the stars. They may live and die, never reaching them. But in the darkness of the night, those stars will guide them to their destination, because they put them in their sights. How long will you keep pounding an open door, begging for someone to open it? Breathing in, breathing out. Blessed be. Amen.
All kinds of roses, all kinds of roses, all kinds of roses grow in my garden. All kinds of creatures, all kinds of creatures, all kinds of creatures run on my land. All kinds of children, all kinds of children, all kinds of children play in my yard. So many feelings, so many feelings flow through my blood. all kinds of people, all kinds of people, all kinds of people make up my life. All kinds of faces, all kinds of faces, all kinds of faces show me their love. All kinds of lanterns, all kinds of lanterns, all kinds of lanterns light up the dark. But there's only one God, only one God has a place in my heart. All kinds of roses, all kinds of roses, all kinds of roses grow in my garden.
Reading today ties in with Nell's message on introducing Islam, part 2. And today I'll be reading what's called the throne verse, the 255th verse of the second surah of the Quran. This verse speaks about how nothing and nobody is regarded to be comparable to Allah. It's one of the best known verses of the Quran and is widely memorized and displayed in the Islamic world. It's translated by Muhammad Marmaduke Pickthall, a British Islamic scholar noted for his 1930 English translation of the Quran called The Meaning of the Glorious Quran. And his translation is one of the most widely known and used in the English-speaking world. Allah, there is no God save Him, the alive, the eternal. Neither slumber nor sleep overtaketh Him. Unto Him belongeth whatsoever is in the heavens and whatsoever is in the earth. Who is he that intercedeth with Him, save by His leave? He knoweth that which is in front of them and that which is behind them, while they encompass nothing of His knowledge, save what He will. His throne includeth the heavens and the earth, and He is never weary of preserving them. He is the sublime, the tremendous. Okay.
Leading up to this sermon, I received several inquiries from members of the congregation curious about different aspects of Islam. And one question simply asked was, is there a mosque in Amarillo? And the answer is yes. Actually, we have at least 2 formal mosques here in town, and one is over in the northwest section of town close to the medical center, and the other is in the northeast part of town, and it was built by our community of Somali immigrants. So yes, Islam is alive and well here in Amarillo. One person also asked about the role of women in Islam, and that is a story really best told by the women within Islam. So if you're truly curious, please go and listen to their stories directly. There are wonderful books I can point you in the direction that you might find interesting. Remember that Islam is a religion that is observed across many different cultures, many different countries. And each of these cultures have different gender expectations. And however, it is true across all cultures that control of women and women's bodies is foundational to patriarchal power. And as we have seen in our own culture, the patriarchy is not going to smash itself. In the Muslim world, which is far more diverse than popular media portrays, it is up to the women and men within the faith to challenge and change its expectations of gender. And it can also be a commitment of secular governments within countries to uphold the safety and equality of all their citizens. Finally, someone asked if Islam is a religion of violence and extremism. And again, I think the best observations on that come from within. Some will stress the teachings of peace, and some will point out that leaders seeking power can find everything they need to justify violence is also written in the Quran. Remember, there were two phases of the Prophet Muhammad's life, the one where he was struggling for acceptance in Mecca and one where he gained power and control in Medina. And the teachings from these two different times reflect those different phases of his power. As for extremism, well, there are extremists who embrace violence in every religion. Even Buddhism. There are violent Buddhists. Extremism can happen in any dogmatic belief system, and it's a human behavior that more typically affects young people who are struggling to find identity, kinship, and such humans can be very easily manipulated into extremism by others who are seeking to establish or maintain power. So, the extremism and violence that makes the news headlines, I want you to recognize it is grounded in economic, cultural, climactic, and political struggles. It's a mistake to simply pin it on theology. And as we are all moving through times of great societal upheaval, as we're seeing the greatest levels of economic inequality among human beings at any time in our species' histories, we are going to be seeing extremism flare up in all of its forms. Nationalism, jihadism, prosperity gospel, all of it fed by ideological dogma that really only serves to control the many while maintaining power for a few. Okay? So, that kind of wraps up most of the questions people pose to me. So now let me tell you a little bit more about contemporary Islam. Remember that the Quran is considered to have been revealed by the angel Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad. But another detail is that Muhammad was not a literate man, and this was quite common in his era. He actually never wrote down what was revealed to him. He told it to others who wrote it down. And here we get into an inherent problem with any kind of scripture. It's a problem that runs across all traditions that have a scripture that was said to have come directly from a god through a prophet, and that is the matter of interpretation. If the text is said to be inerrant and delivered and received verbatim through a prophet, then how are people supposed to interpret the text? Some approach the work literally, that the exact words are no more and no less than as they are written. Some approach a text more liberally. If an infinite wisdom created the text, then there must be infinite interpretations. In Islam, as in Christianity, there are interpretations that are literal and others that are liberal. And the problem with Islam is that the Quran and the Hadith, the additional teachings, contain a lot of inconsistencies and contradictions, and serious contradictions with serious implications regarding warfare and peace, and instructions to uphold religious tolerance, and injunctions against tolerance. So Islamic scholars developed a doctrine of what they call abrogation, that examines the contradictions in historic order and regards newer revelations as improvements superseding older revelations. And this means that it would dismiss older wisdom that spoke about peace and tolerance and prefer newer revelations that call for war and conversion. Okay. Now when I say older and newer, remember we're still talking 7th century revelation. Voices of dissent from within Islam point out that interpretation, criticism, and even scholarship that would examine the archaeological records around the Quran, they have been stifled to the extent that the religion is being suffocated by its own insistence on submission and determinism. And because so much of the scripture is focused upon the political and maintaining power, it's very hard dirt in which to grow any seeds of change. While there are many different schools and different sects within all of Islam, some would say that the faith has not yet experienced the seismic shift of an internal reformation to challenge the theological authority and power. Some critics and scholars say that the religion is overdue for the kind of shakeup that has occurred in Christianity several times now, most notably the Reformation. Some are pointing to the stressors of our modern era as exactly the same conditions that is required for such a revolution. Others would say that it's a mistake to even borrow the word Reformation from Christianity, and that change in Islam will occur very differently. Some who look at the whole arc of Islamic history note that a change has already begun. Either way, the voices to listen to are the ones who are in close proximity, the ones whose lives depend and will be changed by any changes. At least one of the scholars that I read to prepare for these sermons has pointed out to there's an inherent tension within Islam, and that is a foundational prohibition against innovation in the faith. The writer Ayaan Hirsi Ali points to this mistrust of innovation as a key to the stagnation of the faith and its inability to cope with modernity. And after a flourishing of the intellectual arts, literature, mathematics in earlier centuries, Hirsi Ali and others now point to a contemporary Islamic culture regressing with waves of anti-intellectualism, anti-scientific backlash against modernity. Yet, we see this in Christianity as well. And yet, again, any work to embrace innovation will be the work of young people who must live in their future, and it is the work of both the religious and the secular leaders within these faiths. Now, let's go find ourselves in Islam. If you cannot find some part of your own experience in the teachings, you will never really understand the power of the teachings. Where would we recognize ourselves in Islam? This is a little tricky because there really is no widespread liberal expression of Muslim faith. There's no one specific branch. But the most likely place that we might recognize ourselves would be in Sufism. Sufism is a movement that exists in both of the largest branches of Islam, Sunni and Shia. And Sufism looks about as dangerous and heretical to conservative Muslims as Unitarian Universalism looks to conservative Christians. This is not to equate Sufism and UUism. It's just to say that Sufis are theological odd ducks in their family, and we are theologically odd ducks in our family. But here's where we do have some overlap. Contemporary Unitarian Universalists and contemporary Sufis find that our greatest obligation is to serve living people in the here and now, rather than in preparation for some hereafter. And this commitment to our lived experience, this flies in the face of both mainline Islam and mainline Christianity, both of which see this life as merely a lead up to eternity in either a hell or heaven. So, a concern with living with other humans. Sufism is also more concerned with the internal spiritual discipline than the external observations, the social observations and prayers. And this focus inward has given rise to some of the most exquisite poetry, often badly translated into English. Beware of bad translations of the poet Rumi. And please know that often the translations of his poetry mislead the reader away from his ecstatic love of God and wind up sort of into a milder humanistic idea that's more palatable to contemporary Westerns who are big consumers of these translations. So instead, here is a poem from a woman. We heard her already in the prayer, Rabia al-Adiwaya, from the 8th century. O my Lord, if I worship you from fear of hell, burn me in hell. If I worship you from hope of paradise, bar me from its gates. But if I worship you for yourself alone, grant me the beauty of your face. There is a tolerance and eclecticism in Sufism that makes them a very easy target of their conservative kin. This should feel kind of familiar to some of us. At a congregation here in Texas, a visiting scholar a couple years back from Iran, he was delighted to be invited to the local UU congregation, and he was reading the Gray Hymnal and got very excited. He asked if he could get a copy of this book. He was especially happy with all of the different readings from different religious traditions that are included in the hymnal. Flipping through the pages, he smiled and explained how we reminded him of Sufism and that their view that all of the world's religions are leading towards the same love. He was really delighted to find that not all Christians in America are like evangelicals. However, and honestly, Sufi mysticism would feel very strange for those Unitarian Universalists who just don't work with the construct of a deity. Sufi panentheism, which finds God expressed in all things, is probably not particularly useful to a strict atheist, but it might feel useful to a UU who does see the holy evident in all around us. So, while the comparison of Sufism and UUism can be helpful, I just wanted to be clear, it is incomplete. But in the meantime, here is another poem from Rabia al-Adiwaya. I carry a torch in one hand and a bucket of water in the other. With these things, I am going to set fire to heaven and put out the flames of hell, so that voyagers to God can rip the veils and see the real goal. May it be so. Blessed be.
At this time in our service, the congregation makes its financial offering. If you have made a pledge or would like to make a contribution, you can simply mail it into our office, or you can make it online. There is a donate button on our YouTube landing page and on our website, uuamarillo.org. On the home page, in the upper left corner, you will find a blue donate button that will take you to a place where you can donate securely through PayPal. If you have made a financial pledge for this year, please keep up your pledge. While we are not meeting in person, our groups are still meeting. We have Nothing Much Buddhist group, meets on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. Please check their Facebook group for more information. Our UU Adult Religious Education class is meeting at 10 a.m. on Sundays using Zoom. Right now, the class is examining the role of UUs in social justice movements. If you are interested in attending this class, please find the link in each week's newsletter. TED Talks on Tuesdays. We have a group that meets every Tuesday to watch a TED Talk and then discuss the ideas. They meet every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Zoom, and for the next few weeks they will be focusing on talks related to climate change. You can find the link to their meeting in our newsletter. For more information, please contact Reverend Nell. Coffee on the Patio happens every Thursday morning from 9 to 10:30 a.m., weather permitting. Feel free to stop by and chat with folks out on our patio. It's bring your own beverage and folks will be expected to practice social distancing. For more information, please contact April in the office. If you've been participating in the life of the congregation or simply watching our services online and are now interested in knowing more about our fellowship or becoming a member, please contact us. We have a Path to Membership program that can meet online or in person. Contact us at office@uuamarillo.org or call our office at 806-355-9351 and leave a message. At this time, I want to thank all of the folks here who are helping to make this worship service happen. Thank you to John, Larry, Lydia, and Dwight for your dedication and care. We couldn't make this happen without you. And now, as we extinguish our chalice, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Now, if you'll join me in our closing words, may the fellowship of this hour touch and move our lives until we come together again. Thank you.
As you go out into this world, please carry these words with you. The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with thee, nor leaves thy sight. And I am thine, I rest in thee. Great Spirit, come and rest in me. Go in peace.